In Boxen's land where animals talk, a curious place where no one balks. King Bonnie rules with gentle paws. He enforces love with no sharp claws. Lord Big, the bear with wisdom deep, wonders why no secrets keep. He guides the people through the night. His vision brings the morning light. In Boxen's world where dreams take flight, where kings and lords make wrongs alright, with talking animals dressed to impress, in a land where peace is always blessed. King Benjamin set thee on his throne, in this modern world carved from stone. His reign brings progress far and wide, industrial dreams by his side. Rajah Hawki takes wing, in skies of Boxen he's the king. Histories ink in every feather, uniting Boxen all together. In Boxen's world where dreams take flight, where kings and lords make wrongs alright, with talking animals just to impress, in a land where peace is always blessed. King Benjamin sat on his throne, in this modern world carved from stone. His reign brings progress far and wide, industrial dreams by his side. Rajah Hawki the fifth takes wing, in skies of Boxen he's the king. History's ink in every feather, uniting Boxen.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I learn about him through everything he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I'm doing a flashback episode today where I go back and look at some stuff from his early years. I was originally in year 18, where he was an infantryman in World War One, but I paused because I got my hands on some material of the first imaginary land that he created as a young man. I have my co-host here, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, go ahead and introduce yourself, but I'm also going to bring in a human co-host for the second time in the history of this channel. Daniel is waiting in the wings backstage, and I think my microphone is working. Daniel, I see you backstage. Can you give a thumbs up if you can hear me?
Hi, I'm Robot Lady, co-hosting with Jeff as we explore C.S. Lewis's writings. Excited for today's episode? Daniel, we're ready for your thumbs up whenever you are.
Alright, I'm going to go ahead and bring Daniel on just to see if that will help. So stand by, everybody.
Sounds good. I'll be ready when Daniel joins.
Alright, just some production on the fly here. Hang on just a minute. Let's make sure
No problem. Take your time.
that I can get all this stuff going. Alright.
Looking forward to it. Everything seems to be coming together.
Yeah, maybe it seems that way. Hang on.
Sometimes it takes a bit to get everything just right.
Looks like my system is running a bit slow.
That can happen. Just take your time to sort it out.
Alright, I'm going to go into the standby mode here for just a second.
Got it. I'll be here when you're ready.
Alright, Daniel, can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Nice.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
here if you need anything while you check in with Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Robot Lady. Hang on.
Of course. Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, looks like we're back. Daniel, can you hear me okay?
Sounds like you're getting everything sorted.
Yep.
Okay, there's a tiny bit of a delay on my end, but I think we can work our way through it.
Yep. Same here.
All right, I'm just going to jump right into the narrative where we left off. If people want to catch up, they can check out earlier episodes. So, oh wow, look at that. Man, this thing is really lagging. Okay. All right, I'm just going to jump right into it, Daniel. So, if you want to say anything, feel free to just jump in whenever, and I'll pick up whenever I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent.
All right, we are on chapter 6, and it says, Great was the preparation of Bar and Magella when the eventful evening arrived. Bar had hired a hansom to be ready for them, both outside the schooner, where they had arranged to meet. As they drew near the palace, Regency Street became a mass of moving lights, dancing in the music of horses' hoofs and the powerful purr of motors. And it was not without difficulty that the hireling Jehu navigated them to the portals of Regency St. Palace. Stepping out, they were conducted by suave domestics to the cloakroom. which, as is usually the case on these occasions, was crowded with knots of whispering guests fiddling with their gloves. There, of course, is Puttyfat, immaculately clad. There is Reginald Pig, the ship owner, dressed in solid and plain evening dress. There is Quickstep, looking finer than ever as the electric light catches his glossy, curling locks. There is Colonel Chutney, formerly head of the War Office, but now removed to give place to Fortescue, who is also present. After some time of nervous fumbling and brushing, Pig, the most courageous person present, led a sort of forlorn hope to the salon where their majesties were receiving their guests, and where stout domestics dispensed tea, etc. The two kings were throwing all their histrionic powers into an imitation of enjoyment, and behind them stood the little master, looking rather worried. The boys kept up a continual flow of conversation, which I'll jump into in just a moment, but Daniel has completely disappeared from my screen. All right, I'm going to switch to another standby. I'm going to switch to another standby screen, so stand by. Let me flip back and see if I can handle this. Okay, I think we're back. All right, I think I can hear you, Daniel. Can you still hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, sir.
All right, looks like the lag has taken care of itself, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that things continue to work well. Just a footnote. So we were talking about a couple of things in our last episode. One of them was just how he knew or understood kind of these different political machinations and things like that. One thing that I forgot from Lewis's biography is that his dad was kind of heavily involved in the political scene in Ireland when Lewis and his brother were young. And his dad would host political meetings, get-togethers at the house. And so the boys would kind of be exposed to that and have to listen to all of the adults talking about political things when they were young. So some of his source material, I think, was his exposure to those conversations. So that's one piece of it. And then another thing that I had recalled from reading the introduction to this book is that the triumvirate of these characters, the Lord Big Guy, and then the two kings who were he was the tutor of the two kings when they were boys, and so even as they grew into adulthood, he still called them boys. That is kind of, not perfectly, but a little bit of a reflection of the relationship between Lewis, his brother, and their dad. So Lord Big is kind of a cutout character as their dad, and then the two kings are the two Lewis brothers. Now, he describes this as saying, not exactly, it's not that Lord Big is an exact copy of my dad, but in frog form. He says in some ways this Lord Big character is kind of predictive of who Winston Churchill would turn out to be. So there was just a little bit of a backstory context added by Lewis there as to, how to maybe understand. Or he said something like, if the reader were to see a resemblance between my brother and I and my father, he would not be wrong, but it's not exactly, a person for person parody of us three. So I wanted to add those two things in because I felt like I fly blind a lot when I'm reading, and then things come to me later where it's just like, oh yeah, he did talk about this, or I did read this somewhere, or I'll make a connection not in the moment. So just wanted to share a little bit of that to help add some flavor to all this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a little bit less impressive that he didn't pick it all up from books, but yeah, I mean, it's still impressive, but
Yes.
that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense that he was seeing this kind of thing firsthand, at least a little bit.
He was more exposed to the adult world than maybe I was first giving him credit for, so that's fair enough. Yeah, picking it up just strictly from books would have been much more impressive, to your point, but at the same time, you know, getting exposed to the real deal is a pretty neat opportunity as well if he's going to try to put this stuff down to paper.
Yeah, it's really cool.
All right, here's where the dialogue picks up. The boys kept up a continual flow of conversation. Good evening, my dear pig. How are the ships? Ah, Viscount Puttyfat, very glad you came. Good evening, your majesties. Ah, my dear little master. I see you've been having busy times in the clique. Yes, said Big, dryly. The Duchess of Pinsley came up, a heavy woman, whom they all abominated. Good evening, Duchess. Hasn't Miss Pinsley? Oh, influenza? I am very sorry to hear that. The Duchess passed on to Big. Ah, Lord Big, this is a pleasure. How delighted I was to hear you had some excitement in politics. It does liven things up. So doesn't it? The frog responds brusquely. It certainly does. And engaged in a dance. Little Bar, the bear, now came up. The boys turned to him. Good evening, Mr. Bar. Hot, isn't it? It has been all day. Good evening, Miss Inglington. I don't think you've met Mr. Bar. Allow me. Miss Inglington, Mr. Bar. Mr. Bar, the Hun, Miss Inglington. Bar moved off dutifully to engage a dance, which he did. Have you seen The Three Loonies? Inquired Bar. Yes. What did you think of it? Excellent. Of course, the caricature of their majesties and the little master was rather obvious. I guess there was some kind of play or something called The Three Loonies that somebody had put on. Oh, yes, but I don't think they will take any offense. Not their majesties, but Lord Big may. Guess they're having this conversation as they're dancing. The music now struck up the opening bars of the first waltz, and the actual dancing began. A detailed description of that famous evening would be tedious, so let it suffice to say that it was a great success, in spite of the fact that Big's every partner mentioned the recent political rupture. True, one lady, gazing at the frog's somewhat out-of-date costume, observed, I wish I had known it was fancy dress, little master. You quite remind one of the dear old times. I guess little master Lord Big had a bit of a faux pas with his attire that evening. Alright, I'm going to continue here. At 3, all the guests having departed, our 3 friends were able to retire to their bedrooms. Lord Big, thoroughly tired, lost no time in undressing and throwing himself on his bed. What was that? Surely it hardly seemed as softly caressing as usual. Oh, I forgot the trick that they were going to play on Lord Big. Do you remember what it was, Daniel? What the bar and I forget who the other conspirators were said they were going to do to Lord Big's bed? Uh-oh, looks like our good friend the lag is back.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm still here. Trying to figure out if there's some way
I think I lost you.
some way I can do this now. Alright, hang on. All kinds of technical issues here.
can hear you now.
All right, let me see if I can. There's a lot of. All right, hang on.
I can't hear you now. I've got. Oh, there you go.
All right, we should be back to normal. Can you hear me, Daniel?
Yes, sir. We're good.
All right, excellent. Okay, hopefully some of those changes I made helped a little bit. So, here we go. Where was I? All right, at 3 a.m., all the guests having departed, our three friends were able to retire to their bedrooms. Lord Big, thoroughly tired, lost no time in undressing and throwing himself on his bed. And I was going to ask you, Daniel, if you remember the trick that Bar, the bear, and I can't remember who the other conspirators were. Maybe it was the parrot. Oh yeah, it was the parrot, and it was McCullough, the knight, the chessman knight. We're gonna play on Lord Big. Do you remember what it was?
Wasn't it golf balls?
Yeah, they were gonna stuff his bed full of golf balls, stuff his mattress full of golf balls. So here's the payoff of that, conspiracy. What was that? Surely it hardly seemed as softly caressing as usual. And why was it so springy under him? It seemed to be entirely made of hard round balls. Perhaps it was only fancy. So he gallantly lay there for 10 minutes. Then he could stand it no longer. The pain. No other word was adequate. The pain was too intolerable. Wiping his brow, he gazed at the couch of torment. Drawing a heavy sigh, he began to pace the room. In the dead of night, the time went slowly, and he decided he couldn't walk about till dawn. He bent over the mattress and examined it. He could not conceive what was the matter. So, with really wonderful fortitude, he decided to make another attempt. But in 3 minutes he leapt from the bed. 3 minutes! He would not stand it, he told himself. He would open the mattress and diagnose the cause of trouble. Drawing a pocket knife, he made a large slit in the envelope and shook it. A second later, he regretted the rash act, for a deluge of golf balls sprang out, bouncing from floor to walls, and thence to the little master's person. Ball after ball rushed on its headlong course of glancing. Accidentally placing his foot on one, it shot from under him and through his mirror. At that moment Benjamin entered, attracted by the unusual noise, to behold the little master ankle deep in balls and dodging a regular whirlwind of the same. "Hello, Big!" he exclaimed. "Whatever are you doing?" And that's how he ends the chapter. It's a funny scene that he sets up, but it's even funnier as I'm starting to imagine this in my mind of this is a little boy writing about maybe his dad going through an experience like this and him walking in on it.
I have no doubt he was laughing hysterically as he wrote it. And I know this is
Go ahead.
I know this is peripheral, but what plastics had to have been invented. I don't even know if they were invented yet. So what are golf balls made out of at the dawn of the turn of the century?
I would presume that they're made out of the same stuff that they were when I was a little kid. Because, I don't know why we ended up doing this, but when we were little, we would eventually tear open golf balls to see what they were made of. So I can't remember what's at the core of a golf ball, but at the very center, it might all be the same thing. But have you ever made a rubber band ball? Because it's tightly packed rubber bands inside of a golf ball, and then it's covered by some kind of a plastic shell. So I would presume that they're made out of roughly the same stuff even back then. So very bouncy. This thing must have been stuffed really tight if whenever he just cut it open, they started shooting all over the place.
It's a lot of golf balls.
There's a part of me that suspects that he had witnessed his dad in a state of frustration and surprise like this before and walked in on him. So this is probably mirroring something, if not if the particulars weren't exactly the same, the scene itself and the circumstances. It wouldn't surprise me if he or his brother witnessed something like this, and so he's probably drawing from that.
Yeah, maybe that's where they learned to swear.
Maybe so. All right, to chapter 7. Polonius Green. Perhaps the reader has wondered concerning the manner of this bird's life. With whom did he concert? Who were his friends? Where was his residence? Well, he mixed gladly with anyone he could. He was despised by the greater part of society as novus homo. All right, here's what I need help from Robot Lady on. She's been dormant here for a while. So we're going to bring her in as a advanced search engine for us. Let's see if she wakes up. Hey, Robot Lady, I just came across this Latin, I presume is what it is. Novus homo. Can you tell me what that means?
Novus homo translates to new man in Latin. It's often used to refer to someone from a humble background who rises to prominence.
So he wasn't considered somebody who was already at everyone's level, perhaps someone who was a little above his station and perceived as such by society. All right, thanks, Robot Lady.
Exactly. It often refers to someone breaking social norms. Glad to help.
All right, the story continues. Yet, many of the best people attended his breakfasts and suppers. Who were they? Well, people like Puttyfat, who could get on with anyone. Distinct from his class was the admiring crowd who toadied to his wealth. Toadied was a word that I learned several years ago when I first started reading Lewis. So a toady or two toady is apparently someone who like sucks up to others. That's what I'm picking up on the context. Robot Lady, hang on. Daniel, have you ever heard the word toady before this?
That's a new one for me.
Okay.
That's a great insight. A toady indeed refers to someone who flatters others for personal gain.
Okay, good to know. All right, brown noser, I think, is the more common term, at least when I was growing up. I don't know what people say today. There's probably some kind of internet slang that my kids use. This is probably not right. I shouldn't say this on the internet. It's not that it's anything bad. It just makes me look oblivious. But I don't know if a simp is quite exactly a toady or a brown noser. I mean, a simp is basically somebody who's trying to gather the affection of a potential romantic target. That's my best description of that term. So maybe there's a little bit of toadying within a simp, but a simp and a toady are not the same thing. There's my my treatise on internet slang for you, Daniel.
You know far more than me. The only word I can think of involves the donkey word.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that one. If it's not safe for the internet, I don't recommend using it. All right. On the morning after the royal ball, he was giving a select breakfast party at his town residence of Shellinghouse. The guests were Reginald Pig, that's the guy who owns the shipping company. Puttyfat is the Viscount Owl, who we've seen the picture of a couple of different times. He owns all of the music halls, or several of the music halls across the land. Bar is the bear who wanted to be in on the original plot to be a part of this new clique, this new political governing party, but he was never let in on it. And Magulla, the chessman guy, the knight. Pig came because he and Green were both ship owners and had common topics of interest in business matters. Puttyfat came because Green's cellar was good. He just wanted the wine. He never disguised the fact to his host, and the parrot himself was in too much awe of the Viscount to resent it. The owl, with almost brutal frankness, censured or commended Green's costume and conversation. In fine, he took Green in hand and ruled him with a rod of iron, which the latter brooked with a meekness really remarkable in one usually so preppy. So, as best I can interpret that sentence, it's basically saying that the Viscount Puttyfat was big time into finery, is another word that I've learned from C.S. Lewis. It has to do with your manner of dress. And I think we learned one of the traits of the Viscount was he was a sartorial person, which was very focused on fashion and the way that you dressed. And so he was basically telling the parrot, hey, giving the parrot, it looks like a little bit more than just advice, but just kind of basically directing him and saying, no, here's how you need to wear your clothes, and basically critiquing him and leading him into what types of clothes he needs to wear. So that's nice, I suppose. Maybe not. Don't know how enjoyable that was for the parrot, but perhaps it was helpful to him in the various social circles that he was trying to lift himself up into. The other two, of course, came as old friends. Green was in great form. "Jolly glad you all came," he said. "Do you see they've chucked me from their clique?" And yeah, the parrot had gotten voted out, basically, by the two kings. "Yes," said Pig, "but nowadays no one is in the clique. In fact," said the owl, "I should not wonder if in 2 or 3 months none of the best people would go into the clique. So the best people wouldn't even want to be there anyway." Then replied Polonius, "Take it for granted. I'll keep out." Yeah, he writes it in such a way where I can throw that accent on there again. "Green," said the Viscount severely, "you are not one of the best people, and do not affect to give up the idea of a click ship." "Sorry, Fat. I only meant it was more trouble than it was worth." "Anyway," said McGullough, "things are so changeable now that the click is not the same for a fortnight together." "By the way," said Barr, who, since his unsuccessful attempt to enter the clique, had lost all interest in politics, "I wonder how Big slept last night." "What's the wheeze?" inquired Pig. It was just being related when a servant entered and handed Pig a large letter. Yeah, the pig wasn't in on the joke that they had played on Lord Big, so they were trying to explain it to him, and then Pig gets interrupted by having a letter handed to him. It was from the Frater Senior of the Tracity Chessery, the senior Chessery of the world, and it ran thus. So I'm going to try to read this. Here's a handwritten note that he illustrated for us as to what it said. And we'll get into this illustration that's on the other page in just a second. All right, let's see if I can make this out. "Dear Sir, having considered the best policy to adopt in foreign trade, we are come to the decision that it is best to place it entirely in the hands of one company. Whereas we are decided that the best company for this, I can't read that word, for this is the Green Line. We have no further use of your services. Signed, Tracity Chessery, Trade Senior," and I can't see what this name is. I'm trying to see if they, Trade Senior, Frater Senior, and then it has a date here or something like that. So what I take from that is the chessmen have taken their business in using a shipping line away from Mr. Pig's company, and they've put it all in the hands of the parrot, Mr. Green. So that's a little uncomfortable as he's standing there in their midst as he receives this news. All right. "Ah," thought Pig, "now we know why our parrot was so keen on the chess seats in the clique. Now we see behind the scenes why he wanted to bring the chessmen in to have power in the government. Because he had a deal. He had a secret deal on the side. All right." Aloud, the pig said, "Gentlemen, read this." The letter was passed round, and as each guest mastered its contents, he turned his eyes on the parrot, who sat in alarm, knowing well what the missive was. Like one man, they rose. Sorry, Lucy is distracting me. Look, she's like rubbing her face. She's rubbing her face on the corner of this book.
Trying to help.
She's trying to help, yeah. Like one man, they all rose and strode silently from the room. Puttyfat was last to go, and Green spoke to him. Puddles, old bird, what are they all going for?" The owl turned round and gave Polonius one long steady look, then turned and went, shutting the door after him. Metaphorically, too, he shut the door. I don't know why he added that sentence onto the end, but essentially he's done with the parrot, I guess is what he's saying. All right. Oh, and here's an image of him shutting the door. This is funny. So there's Puttyfat standing at the door, and the parrot right there just kind of looking a little dejected, I guess, from his body language.
It's fantastic. It's so good.
It's really great. I mean, he's basically drawing up his own graphic novels here. That's pretty cool. At least his own comic book.
We have any idea who the parrot is? Like in his life that he knew? Is it someone?
Not that I've read about yet, so I'm not sure. I think he just needed a foil for all of this, or somebody to drive all of the conflict through. But it's interesting, you know, he kind of layered this parrot's motivations. And it's funny, look, he's at the parrot's place, and take note of what's on the wall. I find that funny as we're talking about the layers of the character of the parrot.
I can't quite make it out. Is it the parrot?
Yeah, he's got a picture of himself hanging in his little banquet hall.
It's fantastic.
That's awesome. All right, chapter 8. Oh, Lucy, don't rub on the microphone. Oh, goodness.
Third co-host. Fourth
co-host. Lucy, chill. All right. She's like, hey, it's getting close to my breakfast time. Lucy, we're gonna take about 20 more minutes, so try to relax. All right. Chapter 8. The two Vamp brothers were known by all Calcutta. The eldest, Oliver Vant, had been brought up in great ease by his parents. I'm trying to remember who the Vants were. I think those are the pigs. Mr. Pig his last name is Vant, if I remember. The two Vamp brothers were known by all of Calcutta. The eldest, Oliver Vant, she's rubbing on the mic again. Hey, come here. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that or not. If you can't, I'll try not to be distracted by it.
Just barely. I can hear that a little bit.
Okay. The eldest, Oliver Vant, had been brought up in great ease by his parents and was an excellent stockbroker. She's destroying stuff on the table now. I don't think it's anything important. So, his brother Reginald, the pig, had gone to sea as a boy and finally become ship owner in partnership with Bradley. Their business relations had soon been supplemented by a firm private friendship, and so the three lived together at Murray in Furtis Hall and at Calcutta in Nason House. After leaving Shelling House, Reginald went to his office to find a note from Bradley saying that the latter had taken a half-day off, stepping into a hansom, and gave the order to drive to Nason House. In 15 minutes, he drew up before the door and entered. In the study, he found Bradley ensconced in an armchair before the fire. And I know we just read this, but I need help with this sometimes, so if this is annoying to you, Daniel, just let me know and I'll try to stop doing it. But this Bradley person is the person that he's in business with, or at least his brother is in business with, in the shipyard, not the shipyard, but the ship industry. So, hello, Reggie. You look annoyed. Annoyed? A terrible thing has happened. What? Green has happened? What do you mean? He has, but this letter will explain it all, said Pig, producing the missive from the freighter senior of the Tracity, the chessman. Bradley read it. And here we have the word damn again, marked out. I'm gonna read it though. Damn the bird, he said lowly. What do you purpose to do? I don't know. Of course he has obviously been bribed with this privilege, but one cannot prove it. Well, one can have a try. Our trade with the Tracities is quite a large fraction of our total. Yes, I gave everyone his letter to read, and they'll all cut him after this. What a fool you are, Reggie. Who cares whether they cut him or not, when we've lost the Tracities? He does. Rot. If he does, that doesn't give us the Tracities back. No. We ought to speak to someone in authority about it. Yes, it could do no harm, anyhow. The little master might do. No, General Quickstep is far more of a capable man. Yes, but he holds no office now. Well, he could get big to carry out his plans. Perhaps Reggie, but the frog, is one who always thinks his own plans to be the best. Well, shall I speak to him in person? The other was silent for a moment. But what do you suppose any of them could do? I don't know, but they might do some good, and they could do no harm. Very well, then, Reggie. When can you see the frog? I tell you what, their majesties told me last night that he and they are going to see the Three Loonies at Oxenham's. Let's go tonight, and I can speak to him in his box. So yeah, it looks like this is an opera, the Three Loonies, where I don't know if Lord Big and the Two Kings are being homaged or if they're being parodied. but nonetheless, there's some kind of opera about the three of them going on. Very well, then we'll see the play at the same time. Yes, I'll bring Ollie. At this moment, the elder Vant arrived from his office. Oliver Vant had been called a gloomy misanthrope, but this was unjust. He was an excellent man in his own business, and in private life kindly pompous. Good evening, Reginald, said Oliver. You are early at home. Yes, Ollie. Bradley and I are going to Oxenham's tonight. Will you come? It was the custom of the three to play whist every evening. To play whist every evening. W-H-I-S-T. And Oliver preferred it to a musical comedy. I don't know. To play with, I guess that means to go to a play every evening? I don't know what that means. It's probably not important.
I don't know that one either.
It's probably not important enough to engage Robot Lady, but I'm going to try anyway. Hey, Robot Lady, I'm going to read this sentence to you. I need some help making sense of it. It says it was the custom of these three people to play whist, W-H-I-S-T, every evening. And Oliver, one of the three in that company, preferred it to a musical comedy. Can you help me with the word whist, W-H-I-S-T, in this context, what it might mean?
Whist is a classic card game popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. It's played with 4 players in pairs, and similar to bridge, it focuses on strategy and teamwork. In this context, Oliver likely enjoys the intellectual challenge of whist over the lighter entertainment of a musical comedy.
Excellent. Thank you, Robot Lady. That was a great insight. All right, I'm going to turn her off so she doesn't waste our time responding, Danny. All right, now we know. It's basically like playing poker or something. All right. Reginald, we will play whist. Oh, no, Ollie. Reginald. However, I will come. So after an early dinner, they entered their car and drove to the theater. All right, that's the end of that chapter. Now we're on to chapter 9. I've got a little bit of time left. We'll see if we can get through chapter 9, maybe even 10 if we're lucky. On this Friday evening, Oxenham's theater was crowded with spectators of every rank, anxious to see the three loonies. This play was written around 3 characters: a hare, a man of African descent, and a toad, all more or less obvious caricatures of Benjamin, the Rajah, and the Little Master. It could never have been produced in any country where the king was not so good-humored and careless as the boys were. Some fear was felt by Mr. Putney, the manager, as to how the Little Master would view it. In any case, he was coming, and one could but hope for the best. In the meantime, he had an excellent house. It is so funny how kind of meta this is, because I can imagine Lewis kind of writing this in as him either imagining or already going through what it would be like for him to read these stories to his dad. Because his dad probably would quickly see himself and his 2 boys in these stories about the frog and the 2 kings. And now he's imagining what it would be like, like an imaginary version of that setup happening. So this is pretty funny.
Yeah, I love it because I mean, most of the C.S. Lewis that I've read is like more serious nonfiction stuff. So to see like a goofy, funny side of him is really cool. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, the little kid Lewis looks like he was he's a pretty silly mischievous guy. Pretty mischievous. Yes, that's a much better word. All right. I think the funny part is he stayed mischievous his whole life, and I hope to get a lot of flavor of that as I work my way, as we get back to the letters that he was writing to friends and family over the course of his entire life, and then later to readers. He would respond to so many readers. Anybody who wrote to him would respond to him. And I mentioned way back in one of the earlier episodes in this project that's one thing that is reminiscent to me about C.S. Lewis writing to people who encountered his work, he would send his work and his thoughts out through his books into the world. And so people who read his books and were interested and were moved by that would start writing to him, either thanking him or saying, I really need to talk to you about this thing that's going on in my life because I want to hear what you have to say about it. To me, that's a parallel to what Paul Vanderklay has been doing on his channel for years now. And I have mentioned that in a previous episode, so it's a little bit of a divergence there, but I don't know what you think about that, Daniel.
Yeah, I was thinking, what would C.S. Lewis have done with the internet and social media? But I mean, that's it.
Yeah, I think Paul is channeling Lewis a little bit, so that's pretty cool. All right, let's see. So yeah, it could never have been produced in any country where the king was not so good-humored as the boys, but he was a little worried about how it was going to go over with Lord Big. In any case, he was coming, and one could but hope for the best. In the meantime, he had an excellent house. So there, in this scene, there sat Quickstep in his box, prepared to thoroughly enjoy himself, as indeed he usually was. There in the opposite box was Goose, the eminent barrister, gazing round the house. There in another was our friend the Viscount. Oh my gosh, I would love to see like someone just make an actual kind of a live action or an animated, computer animated version, because I can already imagine what it would look like in my head if I were much better at manipulating some of the newest AI video tools. Like I would try to create these scenes.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It'd be so funny. There in another was our friend the Viscount, as immaculate as ever, and sharing the box with him was Colonel Chutney. In the dress circle sat the two Vants, the two pigs, and Bradley, their business partner. Not far from them was Fortescue, head of the War Office. There in the stalls was Barr and his fellow officers of his gunboat. In the pit sat Green, in that humble part because having lost his social standing after getting sacked from the Parliament, he saw no reason to throw away money by going elsewhere. Also in the pit we would have found honest Magulla, well fortified by a Gladstone bag of oranges. Yeah, I've noticed this oranges piece, and there was another throwaway comment about eating oranges at the opera, or just eating oranges in general, that it was kind of a marker of lower status, that the people who ate oranges, particularly at the opera, didn't even realize was kind of a signal to the higher classes about it. Because Lord Big alluded to this whenever he was talking in Parliament about the notion or the proposal that the parrot had brought to the table of, we need to bring the chessmen, some members of their class of society or their people group, into the Parliament, you know. And at first it had the valence that he was, you know, trying to do something notable because this was an oppressed class. You know, Lewis early on when he introduced them kind of compared them to the Jewish people, of how they were oppressed and kind of the dregs of society, or had that imposed upon them by the majority society. And he made a comment about, you know, even though he eats oranges nonetheless, McCullough is a quote unquote good one of them. And so here he writes it in again. See, he is sitting there eating oranges.
I know we've said this 100 times, but it feels so subtle for a little kid. Like I would have not caught any of that at that age.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And he's writing it.
It's amazing what he's doing here, and I don't know what I'm more amazed at, that he's capable of doing this at this age, or that I'm capable of even picking it up, because
yeah, that's fair.
All right, the orchestra presently appeared and began the overture, and shortly after its commencement, the door of the royal box opened, and the little master, Hawki, who that's the name of Rajah, the king of India, and Benjamin Bunny, the king of Animal Land, entered, greeted by loud cheers from all parts of the house. It's so funny that all the kings are loved, and they just happen to be the Lewis brothers. He's like, well, obviously, me and my brother would be loved by all the land if we were the kings.
But of course.
Oh, wow. And here are the three actors. Here's a drawing of the three actors on stage. The stand-ins for these three characters: the frog, the Rajah, who is a dark-skinned man from Africa, and the bunny.
Goodness, so much of this reminds me of like a Skyrim kind of game.
Yeah, I saw that you made that comment the other day. I don't have a lot of experience with Skyrim. That was kind of past my time, but my son played it a lot. So walk me through that. Just give a brief overview of how it's connected or reminiscent of that to you.
So Skyrim is a open world RPG,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the races are like a person with like a lizard head on it,
Oh,
something
okay.
like that. So it's the characters often look like something out of like a RPG kind of game.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, he's he's prophesying Skyrim with these drawings.
Yeah.
There are characters like this with these gigantic animal heads. Well, I talked about how it was in The Shining. There was a pig mask that one ghost was wearing, but also later in Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. Towards the end of it, there are like these creatures that have like these animal heads, like kind of hawk heads or bird heads or something like this on their human-looking bodies. So that's what reminds me of that too. Okay, here we go. Ah, said Bunny, sitting down. That's a good house. Aye, rather, said the frog. If the play is proportionally good, it'll all be right. Excuse me. I should really follow your lead and a lead of a bunch of people that I see on YouTube, which is have something to drink nearby so I can clear my throat a little bit more easily. By this time, the overture had come to a noisy end, and the curtain rose upon the first act. The plot was roughly as follows. Large, which was the toad, falls in love with an actress, and on requiring admission to her house, is refused it by the porter, William, unless he pays £500. After some discussion by the three, Large is left alone on the stage and attempts to climb up through the window and is repulsed. Man, if they're trying to hide who it is that they want the people to think this character is, calling him Large is not the best way to do it, which is hilarious because Lewis is very aware of this. That's funny. So he attempts to climb up through the window. That's funny, to avoid paying. I don't know if that was a proclivity of his dad to try to be miserly and save money or not. I have no idea.
Yeah, it could be.
At the end of the act, he gets the money by raffling the vacant office of censorship, which William wins. Okay. When the curtain fell, the little master was furious. Ah, there's a libel action in every line. I won't stand for it. Oh, Big, exclaimed Hawki. It's splendid. It caricatures us just as much, but we don't mind. No, echoed Bunny. It's all right, Big. You're too easily offended. It may be very funny, Benjamin, but no playwright should bring scorn and discredit on those who ought to be looked upon as the pillars of the state. But, rejoined the rabbit, it doesn't bring scorn and discredit on us. Anyway, I'm going over to have a chat with Puttyfat. Are you coming, Rajah? Rajah eagerly assented to his proposal, and the two monarchs strolled across to the Viscount's box. Good evening, Majesties, cried the owl. And how is our respected little master receiving the play? Badly. He is rather annoyed. Really? Hello, said Chutney, glancing across the royal box. Old Reggie Vant is having a crack with him. At this point, the bustle in the orchestra seemed to betoken a second rise of the curtain, and the kings returned to their own box to find Lord Big in a state of great consternation. So engrossed were they in his tale of what the pig had told him that they hardly observed the second act at all. Okay, so what's playing out now is something that he was setting up in the earlier chapter, where one of the pigs, Reggie Vant, wanted to have a talk with Lord Big to say, hey, our business has been taken away from us, but it was all a dirty, underhanded deed by the parrot, who was trying to bring the chessmen into Parliament because he had made a backroom deal with them to get all of their business if he could bring them in. Okay. This, fortunately, was not vital to the plot, as it included merely Large's adventures on the stage. Okay, so engrossed were they in the tale that the pig had told him that they hardly observed the second act at all. The second act, fortunately, it says, was not vital to the plot, because it included merely Large's adventures on the stage, which he takes up to be near his lover. The act ended in a burlesque, three-cornered fight between the three loonies. Loud and vociferous applause shook Oxenham's at the fall of the curtain on the second act, and Miss Leroy, the actress, Peter Buell as Large. Oh, okay. This is funny. It's explaining who the cast. Whoops, who the cast was. All right. So we've been introduced to this lady much earlier in the story, maybe in the original, the story before this one. Miss Leroy played the person that Large was in love with. She was the actress. Peter Buell was the actor who played Large, and Phileas Doug played William, and they were called before the curtain to the intense satisfaction of Alexander Putney, who was the manager of the whole show. "Well," said the frog at the end of the act, "I don't see what's to be done about that parrot. You put me in a nasty hole by lodging that objection, but now I'm glad you did. Vant, as you know, is furious about it and has appealed to me. Really, it's hard to know what to do. The bribery is obvious, but there is no proof." "Call a clique meeting on the subject," suggested Hawki. Big was silent. He did not want to meet his clique again. He did not yet feel sure how they would regard Green's expulsion, for which he was considered directly responsible, and although it would have been very unjust to say that he was afraid of meeting his clique, he certainly regarded it as a disagreeable duty, which might be put off indefinitely. In his heart of hearts, he hoped that it would die a natural death before it met again, and a new one would take its place. In the pit, Magulla, now full of joy and oranges, was praising the new play to the skies. That was him. I didn't put that in there. That's actually in the narrative. Was praising the new play to the skies, while Bar and his friends in the stalls pronounced it excellent. The curtain now rose on the third and last act, in which... Lucy, open the door again. Lucy, soon. Let me finish this chapter, okay? You being very patient. Good job.
I keep waiting for some terrifying character to come through the door at you.
Oh, yeah. It's like a ghost that keeps opening that door. Let's see. Where was I? The curtain now rose on the third and last act, in which Large comes to the heroine's door with his bribe for William. The latter, however, on becoming censor, has given over porterdom, and the new one knows nothing about the bargain. I don't really know what this is saying, but maybe the context will clue us in here in a minute. The heroine at last appears, and each of the three loonies propose to her in turn in a series of beautiful duets, and all are refused. In the end, she marries William, and the three go on as before. The finale to this third act was encored time after time, and even the lugubrious Oliver Vant admitted that he had enjoyed himself. But for the kings and the little master, the evening had not been very gay, for the latter was gloomy and upset by his disturbing news, and the other were affected by his gloom. Green retired to Shellinghouse in good spirits, and as he ate his supper, looked at the picture of himself on the opposite wall, which we saw in the illustration. "Ah," he thought, "they've cut me now, but I'm not done for. Of course, it would have been pleasant in society. But this has its advantages. Now I can dress as I like and not mind what Puttyfat says, eh?" So he never liked being directed of which ways to dress by Puttyfat in the first place. He's like, well, I'm out. I'm not a part of the society anymore, so at least I can dress how I want. All right, that's the end of chapter 9. Let's see how many more chapters there are. There's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. What? 18, 19, 20, 22 chapters that we have to get through. So we've got quite a ways to go. Chapter 10 is where we start our next one. So Daniel, any thoughts, anything you want to share before we go?
Need to learn to read on 2 times speed, I think.
Yeah, right.
I love that line about, what was he talking about? Like the tensions die and be reborn or something. That was a good line.
Oh,
that was really good.
I think I missed that. Sometimes I go into just reading mode and I'm not paying attention to what I'm reading. Which part was that, or where do you think it was?
Maybe a couple paragraphs back. It was fairly recent. Yeah, I cannot read out loud and actually think about what I'm reading at all.
So they proposed to her and she didn't accept, and then it says, but for the kings and the little master the evening had not been very gay, for the latter was gloomy and upset by his disturbing news, and the others were affected by his gloom. Green retired to Schellinghouse in good spirits, and as he ate his supper he looked at the picture of himself on the opposite wall. Ah, he thought, they've cut me now, but I'm not done for. Of course it would have been pleasant in society, but this has its advantages. Now I can dress how I want. It must have been before that.
I think it was before that.
Call a clique meeting on the subject. Big was silent. He did not want to meet with his clique again. He did not feel sure how they would regard Green's expulsion, for which he was considered directly responsible. Although it would have been very unjust to say that he was afraid of meeting his clique, he certainly regarded it as a disagreeable duty, which might be put off indefinitely. In his heart of hearts, he hoped that he would die a natural death before it met again, and a new one would take its place. It must have been before that. Oh well.
Maybe I just made things up.
I doubt it. I'm sure I missed it.
Whatever happened to the? I'm sure I missed this too. Whatever happened to the? They were gonna have a duel of some sort.
Oh yeah. Who was that between?
I'm sure it was Green and Big.
It was Green and Big, and I think it was more. It turns out that it was more just a bunch of bluster, because he's like, "All right, you seriously want to do it? Let's do it at 3 a.m." And then I guess nothing.
Oh, that's right.
Nothing ever came of it, because right there in the moment he got basically removed from the parliament by the 2 kings. They were just like, "We want to lodge a complaint against this guy," and he gets thrown out. So I think nobody's worried about it anymore. Big doesn't feel like, his honor was, it doesn't matter that his honor was challenged, and the parrot doesn't really care about getting, like smacked in the face with a glove anymore. It's pretty funny. Oh man. All right. Well, I've got to go feed this cat. So this was another good one. Daniel, thanks for joining. I know you can't be here every day, but the days that you can, I've appreciated it so far. You've been, she's not listening, so I'm not worried that she's going to get upset. You've been much better than Robot Lady.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad I'm slightly better than Robot Lady.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah, this is
fun. I enjoy it.
This has been my preference the whole time. I much rather prefer doing this with someone else rather than just being on camera myself. I've never enjoyed that. It's always been uncomfortable. And so the best option that I had, until you or people like you can pop up and help me with it, is just to talk to this robot. So at least I've got some kind of crutch that I can lean on when there's not an actual person here.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'll try it. I'll jump on every time I can. I'll see what the week looks like. It'd probably be rough during the week, but
yeah,
probably can do weekends.
We all have jobs, so
yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
until this starts paying us, which it will not, but until this starts paying us 3 times what we both make right now, then we have to find other ways to pay the bills.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll catch you later. Thanks, Daniel, as always, and I'll see you either in the comments or on here again sometime in the future.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. We'll see you.
Take care. And I'll just say my closing statement until next time when I continue my read on C.S. Lewis. Everybody within the sound of my voice, take care of yourselves.
from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, this overdose. From Narnia's lands, Screwtape lands. Engage with robot lady, take our stats. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books,